My name is Jessica Weible.
Tell me about your involvement with the Watershed Journal.
The Watershed Journal is a nonprofit 501c3 organization. It's a literary group, and I am the executive editor of the Watershed Journal publication and the president of the organization, of the board. And I work along with Sarah Rossi, who's our managing editor, and Tia DeShong recently joined us as a publicity editor. Joe Shire works with us as a volunteer and volunteer coordinator and secretary of our board. And we have some other board members and people who are part of what we do, but essentially we put out a literary magazine each quarter featuring poetry, artwork, photography, fiction, nonfiction, essay, really anything that is a means of storytelling that we can share to promote our region of the Pennsylvania wilds.
All of this has been affected in many ways by this COVID lockdown. But during this lockdown, you've actually had a book come out. Tell us how being the COVID-19 epidemic has affected the process of getting your book out.
The good news is that I don't know any differently because it's my first book. So I have no basis for comparison when it comes to launching a novel. The bad news is it's been several weeks since my book has been launched and I still don't have a copy. And that is because the printer that my publisher uses has been delayed. And as a result of the delays, the author copies have not come in yet. So I keep seeing on, Facebook and on other social media, people which I so appreciate, they've gotten copies of my book, but the running joke is that they got it before I did because I still haven't been able to see it. So that's tricky. The other tricky part about it is obviously a huge part of what I was prepared to do as a new author was to, host events and I was invited to do some different, speak a conference or at a writer's meeting or, different literary events going on. And that was kind of what I was really eager to do to promote the book and talk about it and get out there and meet people and all of that sort of thing. So I haven't gotten to do any of that. I haven't gotten to do any book signings. I've been trying to figure out, okay, should I try to do things virtually instead? Should I try to have like a virtual launch party or, things like that. So I've got some ideas that I'm working on and thinking through, and some ideas of maybe some more safe kind of events now that our county has moved in, lessened the restrictions for social distancing and things like that. So I'm working on that, but I'm trying to forge ahead with that slowly and deliberately right now instead of, trying to burst through the scene. So I'm hoping that the book launch will be more of a slow burn and that I can continue as things open up and as people feel more comfortable, that I can, start doing more events and things like that. But it should be interesting, I guess.
Well, since you haven't seen a copy of the book, you have any idea of what's inside of it?
I do. I do have some idea.
Have you been doing any other writing besides worrying about getting your book out?
I have been working on another project, which is different in a lot of respects because it's instead of Jess Weible, the author, writing this book, it's Jess Weible as a ghostwriter. And so that has a whole different element to it. So I am working on something like that, a project for someone else. And then I've got another book idea that I have a lot of the research done and a lot of the preparation for that done, and I'm hoping to start working on that very soon. So that would be kind of my second book that I might potentially, um, pitch to my publisher for publication through them again. So, and then meanwhile, working on the journal and things like that. So it's
Could you
definitely keeps me busy.
tell me in 3 or 4 sentences what your book is and what it's about?
All right. So the book is called Dead Letters: Delivering Unopened Mail from a Pennsylvania Ghost Town. Essentially, it's about these 10 letters. The book revolves around this mail that is over 100 years old, was never delivered, and in most cases was completely sealed. And all of these letters intersected at a town which, for all intents and purposes, no longer exists in northern Pennsylvania, near where I live. And throughout the book, I investigate everything that I can find out about these letters, the people who wrote them, and many of their journeys take unexpected directions into all these different corners of history that make for some fascinating connections, particularly as I deliver the letters to a lot of the descendants of the people who wrote them. So it's about all these exciting connections that I make after researching and investigating what I find.
Last night you had a virtual meeting where you talked about your book. So you did have sort of a book party last night. Tell me about your virtual meeting last night and how do you think it went?
So I was lucky enough to have the Stained Glass Writers invite me to talk about Dead Letters, which was the first event that I've had an opportunity to do, which was great. It's a great group. They asked really thought-provoking questions. They had a lot of really nice things to say about the book, words of encouragement about seeing me through this process, which many of them did, kind of see me from start to finish and working in the book. So it was really kind of full circle to be able to talk to a lot of those writers about where it's gone from publication. And it was just really encouraging and nice to see that these groups of people, groups of writers, are able to support and uplift each other, and to kind of do my part in that. Something I really believe in.
Have you been able to get out much during this quarantine type era? Have you been staying home or?
Well, it's a good time to live in the forest, as we do here. So we're in a pretty remote location, and that's really nice for me and my family, because my boys can go out and play outside, and they've got lots of space to roam around and get into all kinds of trouble. So as far as going out to stores and stuff, I'm not a big shopper on a good day. So eliminating retail from my life was not a huge sacrifice on my part. And when you have little kids, you don't get to do a lot of fine dining either. So that hasn't really changed much for me in my position. The biggest thing that I do miss is, the literary events that we've had, the writers workshops, the writers meetings, all those ways that we kind of stay connected in person. There's really no replacement for that kind of time and connection. So I miss that. But aside from that, we're doing all right.
You've been doing readings from the library. Tell me about your children's readings that you're doing.
I started doing digital story times in a private Facebook group for friends and family. And the group was designed to help people who were suddenly found themselves stuck at home with their kids. Then the director of the library asked me if I would do digital story time from the library page to as a service for, the public. And my kids were really into it. They were really excited to kind of like be on TV sort of. And so we read stories. Typically we would read a shorter book, like a younger book for younger kids, like a Dr. Seuss or something like that. And then we would read a chapter of a chapter book, like we read Stuart Little, we read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and had started The Little Prince.
How do you see yourself as a writer? What kind of materials do you write? And tell me something about your writing process.
I would say I'm a freelance writer and journalist. I do have some background in particularly local journalism. Mainly, I think I had the most success with human interest stories and features. I still do that to an extent. I've worked with a lot of the different newspaper and print publications, pretty much all of them in the Tri-County area here. So that's my experience professionally. And then now as author of a book, which is, I think, in the same wheelhouse of, local journalism and history, human interest, things like that. So that seems to be where I'm gravitating now, but I have a lot of other different interests too. So, we'll see.
Well, most of what you're talking about are nonfiction type stuff. Do you write fiction, poetry, anything like that?
I do write poetry and fiction. I actually won the library, Rebecca M. Arthur's library has a poetry contest every year, which is great. It's an awesome thing that they've been running over 25 years now. And so I entered that and won that a couple years ago. But I haven't put a lot of effort into publishing poetry. And as far as fiction, again, something I really enjoy doing, but haven't published much fiction.
When you write, do you sit down and just write the whole story out? Do you do it in little bits and pieces? What inspires you to start writing something? Where do you get your ideas, and what inspires you to start writing?
I seem to work best when I have a story that has been pitched to me, like when my editor would pitch me ideas, or in the case of Dead Letters, my mentor and friend Joan sort of pitched me the idea and gave me the letters. So I work best and most inspired in moving around in the world, talking with people, engaging with people, in terms of what their interests are and what their passions are, and then, drawing inspiration and developing upon that. Personally, with my writing, more of my poetry and fiction, I have a lot to explore there. I don't know that I have any kind of, I've developed any kind of reliable practice for inspiration or discipline there. It's kind of unexplored territory, I think, still. It's tough. The isolation hits everybody in different ways, I think, but I think that, we can all agree that it's without the invigoration of, activity and social connection, it can get pretty bleak, and it can feel things can start to feel very mundane and, just bland, I guess. I definitely find that too. I don't know if this is like